let's get started. And I excuse the leaf blower if you hear it in the background, which I can do about it. I'll put it on mute when I can. Anyhow, welcome everyone and members of the public if you're following us online. This is the August meeting of the West Sacramento Area Flood Control Agency. And pursuant to the Governor's Executive Order N29-20, members of the WSAFCA agency and staff will participate in this meeting via teleconference to reduce the spread of COVID-19. Members of the public are asked to watch via live stream. And if there was any comments on any of the items or other items to bring before us, they should have been submitted in writing by 8 a.m. this morning. So with that, we'll do the roll call.
All right. Chair Ramos?
Here.
Vice Chair Sandine?
Here.
Director Ledesma?
Here.
All are present. Please continue, Chair Ramos.
Okay, thank you. Our first item on the agenda is there anyone that wishes to make comments on matters not on the agenda? Have we received any items?
No, Chair Ramos. So we did not receive any public comments as of 8 a.m. this morning.
Thank you. Item 1B, report out on closed session.
The board met this morning in closed session at 8 a.m. on the items listed on the closed session agenda and took no reportable action.
Thank you. Item 1C, monthly and year-to-date revenue and expenses review.
Good morning, members of the board. I'll be reporting out on revenue and expenses for the month of June 2020. So in Fund 870, the beginning balance was approximately $3.39 million. The agency received $2.17 million, with the majority of that coming from the second installment of assessments. Expenditures were $427,000, and the ending cash position for Fund 870 was approximately $5.14 million. The starting balance for Fund 871 was $3.39 million. $1.48 million was transferred from Fund 257 to 871 from quarter 35 true-up, which is from January through March 2020. The agency spent $5.93 million, making the ending position for Fund 871 to be negative $1.06 million. Looking at the year-to-date, the combined cash position among Funds 870, 871, and 257 was $12.71 million. As of August 13th, 2020, the agency's combined cash position was approximately $7.83 million. And with that, I conclude my report. Please let me know if you have any questions for me.
Thank you, Jen. Is there any questions from the other board members? Okay, hearing none, I guess we will move forward to the consent agenda. Two items, consideration of resolution 20-08-01 and approval of our June 18th, 2020 minutes. Just a reminder, our July meeting was canceled. So is there any comments on either one? I know that action was taken on a similar resolution for RD 900, so everyone's probably familiar with what's here. And so if there's no questions, I'd entertain a motion for consent.
I'll move the consent agenda.
I'll second.
It's been first and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor, roll call.
Yes, okay. Director Ledesma?
Aye.
Vice Chair Sandine?
Aye.
Chair Ramos?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. On to item 4s. First up is the update on the borrow site restoration project. I assume that'd probably be Brian, right?
Yes.
So let me give Brian control real quick.
said host disabled sharing, Jen.
Oh, what the heck? Let me see here.
Nope.
Oh, are you able to control it now?
Yeah, it says that I have control now.
Okay, great.
All right. Give you guys an update on our bar restoration project. Started in May, and it appears it's going to end in August, at the end of the month. Unfortunately, DeSilva Gates is not out there working this week being Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. They were out there Tuesday doing the slurry seal, but with the heat and the poor air quality, they're giving their crews a break these next couple of days. And we don't have anything going on in the public area except for the striping that needs to be done on Gregory, but that wasn't scheduled to be done next week. So it's not really impacting the schedule that much or impacting the public. Okay, so overview, as you guys are all familiar, we're going to restore the River Park parcels where the dirt was sourced for levee construction. The methods, we're going to haul the free dirt from Sacramento County Regional Sanitation District in Elk Grove, spread and compact it on the River Park parcels, and then the final item was going to be slurry seal Gregory Avenue. So the truck haul, we hauled down Jefferson Boulevard and Gregory Avenue. They access site A1 through Birchwood Place. They were originally going to access site A3, our area A3 through Birchwood Place using the maintenance access road. But we worked with the contractor and got them to access it from Village Parkway. That way the two residents of Birchwood Court weren't disturbed any longer by the early haul trucks. So that was a win-win for everybody that we were able to do that. We got RD 900's permission to widen the access road a little bit for the use for borrow site A3, and it was more efficient for DeSilva Gates with that wider road to get trucks in and out of there. And they had to repair the maintenance access road anyway, so it was just a minor change for them and less disturbance for our residents down on Birchwood Place. So for public relations on the project, DeSilva Gates notified the public with their notice of construction as the residents for the haul, then again for the slurry seal. That way residents knew exactly what was going on, the times, the days. Residents were unhappy with the haul. As you heard earlier, some of the complaints about the residents. Can't make everybody happy. You have the trucks going down Gregory or Jefferson early in the morning, but they were happy that the haul was complete the first week of August when it was initially scheduled to be complete at the end of October. We also worked with the police department to provide enforcement throughout the project, make sure that trucks weren't running lights, speeding, or driving erratically down Jefferson and Gregory. We got some complaints from residents, and with a large amount of trucks on the road and the truckers being arm's length from the contractor, being employees of a sub, was a little bit hard to control at times. So we dismissed drivers that were not obeying the law and replaced them with other drivers because there were more drivers available than what the contractor needed. Also for public relations, we did a KCRA Channel 3 interview. It was a positive news segment that aired both in the morning and evening, and we got a lot of good feedback on that. We were out there, instead of doing a Zoom meeting, we met them on the top of the levee, did a socially distanced interview, showed them the floodplain restoration and the project behind us. So we told them everything that went on with the project. Basically, we borrowed the dirt to build this levee to provide flood protection, and now we have to put the dirt back. So our origin of the story where residents were complaining about the haul truck. So we turned it into a positive situation and basically sold the project to the residents, and that helped a lot with our public relations on the project. A basic overview of the sites, you guys have seen it before. We have the hashed areas being A1 at the far left end of the screen, then A3, A4, and R2 right across from each other, just to familiarize yourselves again. Oh, this is a photo from the stockpile. It's our construction manager up there at our first meeting. You can see in the background, a little high up, big stockpile for the area in the valley. Get a nice view from the top of the stockpile. So that's where we were testing the dirt and hauling it from. So here's borrow site A1 afterwards. You can see that the grade is flush with adjacent farm field, Buck Rogers Field off to the right. We don't have any vegetation on our site yet. We're not hydroseeding it. We're going to let natural vegetation grow. Save some costs there. Because talking to the state board, they're not going to treat these like a construction site because beforehand there was nothing there. and we're not really constructing anything. We're just basically putting more dirt, and it's adjacent to this farm field right here that gets tilled and goes barren. So we're only gonna have to hydroseed the areas around the road and just let natural vegetation take its course on these sites. There's borrow store site A3, it's finished, right beyond the maintenance access road. A little bit difficult to tell here, but nice, smooth maintenance access road. We were joking around after De Silva Gates repaired this road that it's now the maintenance highway because it's so compact and so smooth. You can drive a lot faster than you can on a standard maintenance road. Of course, it'll wear off with time, but they did a great job compacting it. Borrow site R2 right there, that's before. A little tough to tell on your computer, but you can see in the background there's a little bit of an elevation with a berm on near the back of the site and to the far right and the far left of the site, and it's a little bit depressed from the area right here where you see the K-rails. Now you look at the same site now, flat, completely flat. It's filled, complete. Borrow site A4, when we were out there for one of our pre-construction meetings, you can see there's some rocks and debris out there, a little bit of a hole, as you can see. Same site, nice, flat, smooth site. Another picture of A4 with some of the equipment that was running out there in the background, compactors, the water truck. We didn't receive, well, we only received one complaint regarding dust from one resident, but didn't receive complaints that we have in the past regarding dust on projects. So I think De Silva Gates did a great job keeping the dirt down on the project. So there's a maintenance road repair. This is kind of before. There was some erosion on the seepage berm, some dirt got mixed in with the gravel, and trucks started hauling after a few days, and this is what you're looking at just after a couple of days of haul. Got beat up a lot worse than here. You can tell that there's a rut on the left-hand side of the road here. This is what it looks like afterwards. The Silva Gates went out, smoothed the seepage berm that you see off to the right. That is going to be hydroseeded with a rye mix approved by RD 900 that's going to grow at the rate that the other grass grows. That's going to coincide with their mowing cycles and provide stability. And you see this maintenance road slash maintenance highway. Nice compacted gravel, nice fat section of gravel there, so that RD 900 is going to be able to access it as needed. So here's Gregory Avenue. There's some damage that was done right here by some of the trucks turning. So we worked with Public Works to try and maximize the slurry seal that we're paying for. So as a mitigation measure, we were gonna have our contractor slurry seal Gregory Road. This is a flood project, but we realize these trucks are causing some damage to Gregory Avenue, which isn't in the best condition. So we feel we need to properly mitigate by slurry sealing. But with some roadway damage and some potholes there, we wanted to make sure that the road was repaired and maximize the contractor's slurry seal. So we worked with Public Works and got them out there. They repaved this section of roadway right here, saw cut it, brand new pavement. They filled some cracks and they filled all the potholes around Gregory before the contractor slurry sealed. So we felt that this would maximize slurry seal. Public Works was happy to work with us to go out there and do this to maximize the slurry seal. Then the contractor came back and slurry sealed. You can see the pavement was repaired. And then the slurry seal's over. You can see a little bit of a crack remnant right there, but not the deep cracks that you had before. And some of the residents that complained about the trucks after the slurry seal was done called right back and thanked us for the slurry seal. So, a few happy customers. Here's another picture on Gregory Avenue with the slurry seal. A lot smoother than it was before. And you can see some of those cracks right there with the texture in the roadway, but they're not appearing as the deep depressions that they once were. So here's a little bit a summary on the quantities. So our fill from the plans, we'll just say 460,000 cubic yards. That's straight cut and fill of what we needed. There's going to be shrinkage, compaction, and haul losses with the dirt. So it's up to the contractor to estimate those. So we have up to 600,000 that they can use to get the sites back up to grade. So it might require 460 if they don't lose anything and there's no loss of compaction, or it might require 500. That's up to the contractor, and everybody knew that going into the project. That's how it was set to bid. So I put together this little table here with the restoration sites in column 1. In column 2, we have our fill based on the plans. In column 3, fill based on survey. So 2 and 3 are slightly different. So if you look at site A1, there's less fill required. So this was because there was some dirt placed after our survey by A. Shimmick. So we end up saving money on this site. So we're going based on the fill based on the survey from D Silva Gates survey. So site A1, we end up gaining some. Site A3, we're pretty much neutral. The surveys are fairly close to each other. And site A4, you see we're almost 20,000 more based on the Silva Gates survey. So their survey came in and we took a hard look at that. We found out that our survey didn't go to bottom of water because there was some ponding when our survey was there and they just hit the top of the water line. And there was also an area where our survey stopped on the side of the parcel, which D Silva Gates went to the complete boundary. So just some little errors like that, we ended up with requiring more dirt. And then R2 end up with a little bit more. So basically adding up the survey data that D Silva Gates has, we go from 460,000 to 475,000, about 15,000 more cubic yards that are required based on the survey. So that's a small amount, not that big of a deal. So when we look at the actual fill of what D Silva Gates put on the site. So we have totals for A1, A3, and A4. So they're putting a little bit more than what was required on A1. The same thing with A3 and A4, but they're within the tolerance. So we look at the over and under for A1. So we have about 5,000 out of 133,000. So that's a very small percentage of overage. And our specifications say that they can go 2 inches plus or minus the finished grade. And we have that in there because we need to ensure that we can get a good bid for the project. If we say they have to stick to finished grade, that's going to require more time and effort. When people are bidding on the project, the bids are going to be high to try and compensate for that. So when we have that tolerance, that allows them a little bit more wiggle room so they don't have to be so exact or take so much time to grade it to make sure it's exactly at that elevation to get paid. So you look at site 1, the percentage is 3.2%, something like that. And a little bit higher for site 2 and lower for site R4. For site R4, I think doing the math in my head right here, it's about 2%. So between 2% and 4% overage, that ends up with additional so far 12,300 cubic yards. So our construction manager noticed that they were pushing the tolerance a little bit on the high end. So we believe that R2 is going to come back on the lower end of the tolerance. And these are the games contractors play, as everybody knows, right? You have a little bit of a tolerance. What can we push to maximize our profit? But being that it's such a small tolerance, they're maximizing it, but it's not going to be a huge cost to us. But there is some overage there, some pushing there. So to summarize the project, the hauling was complete the first week of August. That was great. The residents were very happy that we were completed the hauling long before we anticipated. They were able to do that because of COVID. They were able to get more trucks on the road and the haul times were much shorter due to less traffic on the road. So one silver lining to this whole pandemic that we're in is that we got our trucks off the road a lot sooner. And residents that are stuck at home don't have to deal with trucks through October. Public Works did the repair on Gregory Avenue prior to contractor applying slurry seal. So that teaming with Public Works allowed us to provide a better product and hopefully Gregory Road will last a little bit longer. And as I found out working with Public Works, that Gregory Road was a runway prior to World War II. So there's concrete under portions of Gregory Road. And the project was complete at the end of August when the initial complete date was November. And it might stray into September by a couple days because D Silva Gates has their crews out this week due to the poor air quality. But they think they can get it all done next week. If not, it can slide a little bit longer. They're not interacting with the public. Besides the striping, everything is done on site. And what still needs to be done is to replace the concrete poles and tension the fence near the maintenance area and remove the wells and then minor cleanup on site. So does anybody have any questions about the bar restore project?
I don't have any questions. I want to commend you on the work. It looks great. It's great to have it done early and to have the extra benefit of the slurry seal that was done so well. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. This is great. It was good work.
Brian, can you go back to the slide that shows the yardage totals? So are we going to pay them for the line 4 actual fill?
Yes, because it's within the tolerance. Even though they're over what they should have based on survey, they're within the tolerance of the specifications. So contractually, we have to pay them. And we've checked this just to make sure that they're within the tolerance. Even though they're pushing it a little bit, they're still within the tolerance that we specified.
Understood. So FAR 2 comes in close to what it is. They will be close to what, 485 or thereabouts?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. If there's nothing else, thank you very much. And, you know, good work to yourself and WSP and everyone out there and the contractor. I mean, it was a very smooth job. Yes, maybe some concerns with the public, but they were quickly handled. And, you know, I think you should all be proud of the work and the fact that it was done so early. So thank you.
Yeah, we're happy with the contractor's work product on the job and their ability to respond to our concerns.
Very good. Okay, on to item 4B, the SAFCA project updates. Mr.
There we go. Good morning, Chair Ramos, members of the board. I'll just go through a few of the items in your progress report and highlight some of the things that have occurred over the last couple of months. Starting off in the finance section, just sort of summarizing the fact that we've completed transmitting the flood assessment to Yolo County for inclusion on the property tax roll, and staff has done a good job of providing a table there in your report showing the differences between 2019 and 2020. It looks like we had about a 3.4% increase, which does include the 2% increase that the board had approved. So the additional is due to the increase in development over the past year. And so you can even see the additional parcels that have come on board since 2019. Moving on down to the Southport area. Thank you, Brian, for the presentation on the project. Other things still ongoing related to Southport, the former Time Oil site remediation. As the board is aware, that's still going through the bankruptcy court. But staff submitted an amended claim in the amount of $1.06 million, which the trustee has approved. The hearing is to be conducted later this month. And we're hopeful that our claim will be awarded either in part or in full as part of that hearing. There are lots of other folks lining up as well, but hopefully ours gets awarded. So stay tuned. Hopefully we'll have something good to report next month. On the federal project, so as the board, we did not meet in July. Yes, and so on June 22nd, we submitted, MGE, our design team, submitted the 65% plans per schedule to the Corps and to staff at the same time for review. This 65% design deliverable is where there's a number of concurrent reviews that the Corps goes through at the same time. Agency technical review, that's where they take the plans and farm them out to other divisions. For example, Walla Washington takes a look at the cost portions of the specifications and plans. And there, LA looks at geotech and so forth. So all of those agency technical review, division staff review, district quality control reviews, those have all been completed. For the most part, all of the comments were relatively minor. There were a couple of comments related to our proposed remediation in segment AA, which our team is recommending a seepage berm, which differs from that recommended by the GRR, which called for a slurry wall, which in and of itself is not that big of a deal. The issue really is we're recommending a smaller seepage berm than the minimum required by normal Corps standards, which would be I believe it's 4 times, the width of the seepage berm should be 4 times levee height. So in this case would be somewhere on the order of 80 feet instead of the 30 or 40 that we're recommending. So right now, our design team is working with the Corps. Blackburn, our geotechnical consultant, performed an additional analysis or reworked the analysis and is responding to other comments and sensitivity analysis that the Corps is requesting to do. So they're in communication with the Corps this week, and hopefully that will lead to a resolution, which could go, I suppose, one of 3 ways. The Corps accepts our recommendation for the seepage berm as currently designed, with some justifications being noted in the design documents. Or they require us to go the minimum width, which could require, I'm not certain, additional real estate acquisition. Or it could fall back to, if we can't do either of those, we fall back to installation of the slurry wall. And by way of comparison, the current cost estimate for the seepage berm is about $500,000. The seepage berm estimate, back of the envelope, because we haven't designed it, but back of the envelope, it's about 2.5 million. With all of the design recommendations thus far, which is the seepage berm in segment AA, rock revetment at the toe between Z and AC, which is all below Interstate 80. And then the segment between 80 and the railroad, the proposal is to design a seepage management system and reworking the landside toe of the levee. The estimate for construction is somewhere on the order of $10 million. And that compares with what the Corps' estimate was in the GRR of 30 million. And I'll amend that $10 million, that's just construction costs. Total design and construction is closer to 15 million, as compared to the total cost for design and construction that the Corps estimated in the GRR of about 30 million. So we're still way under that cost estimate, which gives us a little bit more room, and a little bit of cushion, should we need to add in different elements. And speaking of which, one of the things that we are looking at is, during the course of this project, the original GRR did not anticipate a seepage management system in this segment AD, the segment between 80 and UP main line. This runs roughly parallel to West Capitol Avenue. As we were looking into this seepage system and tying into the system that the Corps had installed on a contract D roughly a decade ago, just to the west of where we're proposing to do the work. All of this ties into RD 900 system and the broader city's storm drain management system. We've come to learn that storm drain management system is overprescribed for the 100-year event and greater. So we're currently working with the city and their stormwater master plan update team, West Jost, to look at what impacts our drainage system has relative to the overall system capacity. The intent would be that we do an analysis and go back to the Corps and say, we believe we need to mitigate for our impacts to this system, which is overprescribed for the design event, and then recommend some interim pump station upgrades or other work that can either optimize the way the system works or otherwise minimizes our impact to that system. I don't think there's any way that we're going to be able to upgrade the entire system to remove its overprescription, if you will. But we should, our intent is to at least take care of our impacts to that system. So we're working very feverishly right now with the city and to get back to the core in advance of our 90% design submittal, which is due mid-October, so that we can hopefully incorporate that into the project. Again, we've got that $15 million cushion in which to, from a cost perspective, in which to add that in without any adverse effects. The Corps did not anticipate the seepage system itself, nor any internal drainage upgrades as part of the GRR. So we're trying to walk carefully through that with the Corps and hopefully get them nodding up and down as opposed to left and right. The other thing to note, with the completion of the 65% design deliverables, staff led by Mark Pizzolo has kicked off the environmental review process with the Corps. Our consultant ESA is primarily the one to lead the effort initially to develop the project description, evaluate how that differentiates from what was described in the environmental documents for the GRR, and then determine based on those differences what additional documentation, what form it should take. Are we doing a mitigated neg deck or other supplemental EAR? What do we need to do? And then we also need to take a look at it from the EIS perspective. The Corps has volunteered, they haven't verified, but oftentimes in a GRR, they don't get down to project level descriptions, and they'll often punt some of the analyses to the actual project when it gets to design. And so we're in that process of verifying how much, if any, additional analyses need to be done at the project level. And before I move on or ask for any questions, Mark, is there anything that that you want to add on environmental before I move on?
No, I think they're still waiting for the final outcomes on segment AA analysis and the AD analysis and the amount of revetment before they have a full project description, which will identify the number of tasks under CEQA and the corresponding tasks or topics under NEPA. So they're getting background information together, but they're still waiting for a refinement of the project description before they dig in deep.
All right, thank you. And then Mark and the ESA team met out in the field earlier this week, both on the project site to take a look at the features in the area and the environmental landscape, if you will. And I believe they also went ahead and took a tour or at least a look over at Southport for the floodplain restoration. Again, that Southport is to serve as advanced mitigation for additional levee projects. We're in additional levee projects right now, so I want to sort of take a look at the lay of the land and if there's any advanced mitigation that might be applied to this project. So before I move on, any questions from the board on where we are with the current design?
I'll just ask, what's the time schedule at this point going forward as far as final design and possible construction? And if there's not a new start in the picture, how will that affect things?
So for this design effort, mid-October is the 90% design deliverable. End of the year, I think in the first week of January actually, is the 100% design deliverable. We're unsure at this point based on the things that we're working through with the Corps, as well as this whole drainage component, whether or not the design is going to slip. Assuming we get a new start for construction, we would be planning to go to bid through the winter or immediately or soon thereafter receiving the new start with planned construction for spring and summer of next year, completing the construction in one season. So if the schedule does slip a little bit, it's likely not going to impact construction. I think the bigger issue for construction is the timing. Number one, getting a new start for construction and the funding, and then the timing of that given the current budget process, which I'll go through, federal budget process, we'll go through in a minute, as well as the election and, you know, when an appropriations bill actually gets passed. Also occurring right now as part of sort of the normal course of business for a federal project is the district performed its biannual economic update of the project. I think I had reported in previous board meetings that staff had provided a revised schedule to the Corps that reprioritizes the remaining levy segments and refines the construction schedule, also reducing it to a 9-year schedule from the current 11. And that starting date is 2017. So that means that all of this would be completed in 2026. Actually 2025 if you include year 2017. An aggressive schedule, but we think doable if we sort of continue under the same model that we've embarked on, and that is where we, the non-federal sponsor, are providing services for design, while the Corps would then take the design and go to construction, and we would then simultaneously continue on with design. And there may be times when both the Corps and WSAFCA might lead parallel design efforts, either on sub-segments of a given reach. Sac River North is roughly 6 miles. If that gets broken out into 2 segments, for example, the Corps and WSAFCA could proceed in parallel with designs for Sac River North. And then the other projects, the lock area, Deepwater Ship Channel East, there's some overlap in some of those design efforts, but it's certainly the intent that we would be designing in parallel with performing construction of the previous design in order to maintain that schedule. Nevertheless, the punchline is the district has accepted and agreed with that schedule, included it in their economic update, which is now out for agency technical review, Walla Walla, Washington. As of yesterday, the district had not received any comments back yet. I've been assured that the minute they do, they will share those with me. But based on our calculations, the resulting benefit cost ratio, primarily due to the revision of the schedule, is roughly 2.6 to 1, which gets us over that sort of magic 2.5 OMB BCR. So all good news. I hope to confirm that soon. Certainly I would expect by the next board meeting, we'd have the answer to that review. Any questions on that or anything else before I go on to the federal budget process? Okay, so perhaps you're aware, but if not, before going to recess, House had passed 10 of its 12 bills in August, which included the one of interest to us, which is the energy and water bill. It was bundled as part of a sort of a minibus, if you will. Of note to us, they've plussed up what was in the president's budget. So if it were to pass through the Senate and be enacted, it would require a work plan, which is what we want. The work plan is where we hope to receive the New START designation and the construction funding. The bill, the House bill as currently written, does contain all of the president's budget requests for our balance of PED funding for the Corps. The House bill has 7 new construction starts. Pardon me, only one of them is guaranteed for flood. There's another one that could be for any of the 3 mission areas of the Corps: flood, navigation, or ecosystem restoration. So we have a little bit better chance than 1 in 7 of receiving a New START, again, if the bill goes through as outlined in the House version. On the Senate side, I'm not aware of there being any draft bills of any sort that are certainly none available for review. And both our federal lobbyists are fairly well convinced that we're not going to see any of these before the election. And it is unclear what will happen during sort of the lame duck session between the conclusion of the election and when the new Congress and administration goes into effect. So there could be movement during that time, in which case we might see a work plan and our project in bold noted with a new start before the end of the calendar year. But your guess is as good as mine whether it's going to happen before or after. And likewise, the word on the street for any kind of economic stimulus package that might contain funding for the Corps, it's pretty, the word on the street is that will definitely not happen before the new administration and new Congress. One of the things that I put in this particular update was this additional $17 billion in emergency funding to accelerate work on core projects. Again, the word on the street is that's not gonna last, will not be in the final version of the bill, that the Senate will doesn't think that that's an appropriate place to contain emergency funding, and it would be through some other process. But at least it does signal, at least from the House's side, that from an economic stimulus perspective, they're of the opinion that the Corps should receive a significant amount of funds. And oh, by the way, there's no limit on new start construction projects within that proposal. So good indication, likely not going to happen in the appropriations bill. All right, I'll pause there. Any questions on that process? Did I skip over anything big that's occurred recently that I've, in reading what I wrote, I've overlooked?
No questions, Greg, but thanks for the update on that. And I'm tracking that whole stimulus thing too for different reasons, but whether it happens or not, period, is kind of a general question anyway. So
yeah, I think that the bigger item is what the next COVID package is going to look like and how soon that's going to come out. Right?
Yeah.
And I don't have any questions, and I don't want to step on Director Ledesma's toes, but I also happen to serve on the Reclamation District 900 board, along with Director Ledesma, who represents that agency on this board. And there was a request at yesterday's meeting, Mr. Fabian, that the board would like to receive an update on federal budget. So perhaps at our next meeting, you may be able to join us briefly to provide that.
Certainly, be happy to.
Thank you.
I'm just waiting for November 3rd to be here and gone. Something may start up again. I don't know which direction, but at least something.
Aren't we all?
Yeah.
So I'm going to leave your update, your report. I have the funding that the Corps received thus far, both the 19 work plan, the FY20 budget and work plan, and then what we're hoping to see in and I suppose I could revise that to include the House version of the energy and water bill. But those numbers there represent all of PED. And then, hopefully we're looking to see something new in the work plan on the new start construction. And I don't know if I've shared with this board, but I've had some pretty candid conversations with both district staff as well as division staff. And we have it on pretty good authority that the West Sacramento project is the only project within this division that is being recommended for new start construction. And certainly through a stimulus type package, they're looking at numbers that far exceed what's needed to construct the Yellow Bypass project. We're hearing things on the order of $100 million, which would provide significant funding for the Corps to move in parallel with additional design work. Sac River North is the next reach that would be up. And even provide some funding to go to construction as well on that. Likely not completed, but certainly enough to get to maybe a small construction package. So that's all very good news. And it certainly indicates the support of the Corps and West Sacramento being their top priority. All good stuff. Then lastly, just wanted to point out that the community rating system annual recertification was submitted and approved. Our staff, Brian Brown, submitted, this is his first submission, and 0 comments, 100% acceptance. Great job by staff putting that together. We just, I think, received the notice last week of its acceptance. So we maintain our community rating system of 6, which, you know, sort of the big punchline is 10% discount on flood insurance premium. So well, good work by staff and good news. Oh, and then also on the regional flood management plan, DWR finally finished their review and approval of the contract. So everything's been fully executed now, both with DWR and then also with MBK per previous board action back in May. So everything fully executed. Now we're moving along, and I think we meet with DWR to go through our scope of work and possibly do some revisions to that scope in September. I think it's September 21st, I believe. But with that, any questions? All right, one last thing. Our next board member is our next board meeting is in September. As of this time, we don't have any items that we foresee needing to bring to the board. As a note, by the way, one of our team is getting married this month and maybe on her honeymoon in preparation for the board. So if nothing urgent or time sensitive comes up, we may be reaching out. I may be reaching out to the board to request canceling the September meeting. If there's anything in particular, any reason in particular that the board thinks we need to meet that you know of now, please let me know. It's not a done deal, but that's sort of the way things are looking right now.
Well, are we invited to the wedding, or is it a virtual one?
You're on mute, Jen.
It's an elopement with only 6 people total. So very, very, very intimate. My parents aren't even invited right now.
Well, congratulations.
And best
you.
wishes.
Yeah, best wishes to you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And I don't know if I need to apologize for throwing you either under the bus or in front of the spotlight there, Jen, but I couldn't help myself. All right, anyway, that concludes my my presentation. So thank you, and I'll turn it back over to the Chair Ramos.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Very thorough. Any director's comments today? None here as well. So we'll go to item 4, which is adjournment. And I don't think, do we need to vote on that, or I can just declare it? We're adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.
See ya.
Thank you. Have a good.
September.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.